have tuned into the Python Pulse live stream, which is usually every second Friday of the month. But this month, we're doing something a little bit different. Usually we don't have like two people in the same little box, but I am so excited. I'm here with my coworker. I'm here with Nitya. I'll let her introduce herself. She has a awesome backstory, and we're going to jump into some really cool data stuff today. But we are live from the Times Square office of the Microsoft building, where just below us, PyData New York is being held. And it's our last day, and it was a really good conference.
Oh my God, did you see that keynote?
The keynote was so great.
It was. It's my first time as a speaker, but I've been here many times before. And of course, this is New York, the greatest city on earth. And it's been amazing. I think we've had a lot of speakers, but we've also had amazing lightning talks.
Yeah.
A lot of community participation. It's been amazing. Yeah.
I love PyData for how community focused it is. NumFocus, which is running the whole thing, is amazing, and it's been really great because I'm on the Python Software Foundation side. I'm mostly a web dev, and I do some stuff over there. This is actually my first PyData, so I think it's just lovely and ceremonious that it's happening today. Anyway, instead of us complimenting each other and making you all jealous that you didn't join PyData, we're going to jump into the announcements, and then we're going to get into the awesome demo, which is an extension of the talk that Nitya just gave. And we have a lot of meaty stuff. We have some open source contributions. We have some OpenAI. We have some Jupyter Notebooks. We got some Python, and it's good for the advanced use cases from our PhD over here, but also people who are new to Python, because you're moving over some languages, right?
Yes, basically this is for saying you all need to know Python, and here's a way for you to do it because there are tools to help you.
Absolutely. All right, and I see a bunch of people joining. Please comment in the chat where you're from, how you heard about us, and if you're jealous about not being at PyData. And you can join next year. And also, PyData is in many different cities. PyData was in Seattle with Microsoft as well, but PyData happens in a bunch of cities where Microsoft's also not involved. So just get involved with your community. We're huge proponents of our community, and really, really appreciate that Microsoft was able to be a venue sponsor in this particular one. So anyway, let's jump into the announcements, and I get to do announcements with a person today. This is really great. You know about Python and Excel.
Oh my God. You know what? They scheduled that talk against mine and I missed it. Did you see it? I'm excited. You can use Python and Excel.
Okay, that's a stacked lineup. Okay, so the spiel, announcing Python is now in Excel, is currently available for public preview, and you can transform your data with Python and Excel by using Python libraries to clean up, explore, and analyze data right within the familiar Excel environment. So the Python Excel team is really the reason why PyData was able to be here this year. And so it's now available for enterprise, business, education, and family personal users. And it's running in beta channels on Windows. And it makes Python Excel able to combine Python and Excel analytics within the same workbook without any setup required. So that's really exciting. I know a lot of use cases where someone started out with a really messy notebook and it turned into a kind of messy PHP site, and now it spawned a Django agency. Couple of situations like that. So I understand there's a huge overlap for Python and Excel in the Python web dev world.
Yeah, I know. And I noticed how you snuck in Django over there. What is there a reason why?
I do that. Yes, because I go to a lot of Django cons. I will be going to DjangoCon Africa right after this. I got another stop somewhere else, and then I'll be going to Tanzania. I'm really excited, and I'll be speaking about, as I've been doing a little bit this year, supercharging your development environment with VS Code and Dev Containers.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. It's been fun.
Yeah. I think we've got a couple of common things we're going to talk about. Okay.
Yeah, some big words. Those are going to be popping up. AZD is now in 1.4.0. The Azure Developer CLI is an open source command line tool that accelerates the time it takes you to take your application from local development to the cloud. And so the CLI combines some high-level application and developer-friendly commands. And you can think of things like declarative inputs, like init, up, pipeline, config, and it makes getting your code to the cloud so much more easy and intuitive.
Yeah, and hey, shout out to Savannah, and also go check out Awesome AZD. So AWESOME-AZD to see all the templates. There are some cool ones. I think there's the one with the OpenAI from the Python team, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We work with some really cool people.
Yeah.
I love Savannah. Shout out to Savannah, who is also about to probably prepping for GitHub Universe.
Oh, yes. Yes.
She is busy.
Yeah.
And you know about vector search.
I do, but I don't know. Can you do this in Python now? Is this what it's about?
Yes, you could do it in Python, but it's also more about the Azure SDK. Python supports vector search, which is really cool. And so people may be hearing a lot about vector search with machine learning being very buzzy these days. So vector search is a method of searching for information with various data types, including image, audio, text, and video, and more. And so it combines and it makes search results based on a similarity of numerical representations of that data. So really big, really cool. Give it a go. Check some out for Python samples and see it in action with OpenAI, for example.
Hey, that's a really nice segue because if I'm not mistaken, the top AZD template right now is using vector search, and it's Python based. And shout out to Pamela Fox. But anyway.
Another great coworker. This is why we're the Python Pulse. We are on the pulse of Python. Okay, a little bit too corny. All right. Like the cheese factor just ups when I'm like hyped up with another person right next to me. I love it. In another month, another VS Code release. We have some really cool stuff. We have improvements to Shift plus Enter runline in the terminal. We deprecated built-in linting and formatting features, which means you get an opportunity to use some of the linting and formatting extensions. I recommend PyLint, Black, Rough. Those are really fun ones. And I did a video, it's a 2-minute short video that introduces some of the new improvements. And you can also see more of the improvements that came out this month in the Python dev blog. Yeah, so that's it.
I have to say this. Thanks to Don, I actually sat up the night before my talk and updated it because I found out that there were new updates that I could use. So yay, including I think the Copilot one, which was pretty cool.
Good.
So this is great. Do follow all her updates because they're going to come in handy. Just don't do it the night before.
Night before a live demo at a very highly revered conference. But I heard you kick butt, so there you go.
Yeah, it was totally worth it.
All right, we're going to jump into the content. I'm excited to learn all of the things. Let's...
Yeah. And you're kind of going to get a sneak peek of the talk that I did. And one thing I will say is PyData, all of the talks were recorded, so you should absolutely go watch them on their channel. Support these kind of community conferences because there are a lot of people who do a lot of hard work. They're not really being paid to do it, and we should all be there for them. So do I jump in and can I give them the big spiel on why I did what I did for this talk?
Yes, give the spiel. Then we might want to... Did you create a profile for this?
Oh, I got to do it right during this thing.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to, before the end of this, we will ship this profile because I want to actually add this one thing in there and we will do this. But yeah, should I do it now? We'll do it.
You give the spiel, then we'll do the profile, and then we'll jump all in so people can follow along.
Awesome. So the goal for me was actually super simple, right? My talk was called Simplifying Data Analysis with GitHub Codespaces, Jupyter Notebooks, and OpenAI. And it's very cool because Dawn said she's going to go talk about dev containers. So yay, we're on the same page. But I actually had a hidden agenda, and I'll tell you about that in a second. My name is Nitya Narasimhan. I'm part of the AI advocacy team at Microsoft. So here's my hidden agenda. Turns out I'm not a Python developer, and I'm not a Python expert, and I'm not a data science expert. I'm what I think of as an application developer and a polyglot because I pick up what I need to get my job done. And what was happening to me is I kept running into these things every day in my life where I need to use Python. All roads lead to Python these days. And I'm like, how do I just kind of get enough to use it for the things I need? So I'm going to give you these 3 examples. First one is me with my mom hat on. I have a high school student who wants to do competitive programming. Now, for all of you out there, did you know that the USA Computing Olympiad, did you know this? Actually has Python as one of the languages you can use along C and C++ and Java. Python is one of them, not JavaScript. But it turns out that Python doesn't have as many resources because it wasn't competitive. So there's this big gap. We need people to build solutions and teach people how to do competitive programs. So that's there. The second thing we had is you can see that image over there, that little graph. If you're interested in accessibility compliant, you're a web developer, right?
Yes.
So we all want our websites to be accessible. Did you know that even now, 94% of websites will have an accessibility problem? And did you know that the average web page is 1,000 elements? And did you know that you have to evaluate 100 rules for each element? That's a lot of data piling up when you're on a test.
Yes.
And so it's like, how do I even visualize this and know what's going on? And I'm like, people at Python. I'm like, okay, I need Python again. And then I was like, oh, I have this API that's giving me back tons and tons of records, and I want to visualize it. What can I do with it? They're like, have you looked at Python? And I'm like, all right, fine, I get it. I got to do Python. But I had this challenge, okay? So my objectives are like this. I'm not a Python expert. I'm not a data science expert. I don't have 10 years to put in to get the kind of level of expertise people have, but I want to get productive fast. And I think all of us are struggling with this right now, right? AI is everywhere, and the Python SDKs and libraries come out first for every LLM.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So like, how do I do this? So I had these two objectives. One is I want to be learning in a focused way. I only want to learn what I need. I don't want to be boiling the ocean.
Yep.
And the second thing is I have people that I need to teach. Like, so it could be my 15-year-old, it could be someone else in the community that I want to collaborate with. So whatever I do, I wanted it to be easy for it to reproduce, right?
Yep.
So I went to people I knew in Python, said, what should I be using? And they said, first of all, I didn't go to Python people. I said, what should I be using? They said Python. And I said, oh, if you want portability, try notebooks. And I'm like, okay, great. But what are my challenges? And it turned out I had 3. So at the end of this talk, hopefully we'll have solved all these 3. First one is development environment. Yeah, you all know Python, so it's easy for you. Like, oh, you just install this and virtual environment. No. When I start, every new thing I need to learn gives me a different environment and a different set of modules. And I'm like, and then I'm on a Mac, the kid's on a Windows machine. And have you ever heard that term? It works on my machine.
Yep.
Yeah. So I'm like, I'm spending hours just getting my environment set up. We haven't even got productive yet. And he's like, oh, I've run out of time, so I'm going to go play with my friends. And I'm like, damn, I lost him. So I needed something that will be instant setup.
Yep.
The second thing, and this is a second issue we all have, especially if you're like me and you're kind of distracted easily, shiny object, ooh, let me go there, is that the learning process, I wanted something that would keep me in my state of flow when I'm developing.
Yes.
You know how many times you go to Google and then 3 hours later you're like, where was I? What did I come here for? So that was the thing. I wanted like my learning to be like there.
Yes. Yep.
And then the third thing, and this was the hardest one, is I have a knowledge gap. Now I'm a polyglot. I've like worked in this space for years.
Yep.
But it's not the same. Data science, oh my God, is more art than science.
Yeah.
Right? And so, you know this famous saying, I don't even know what I don't know?
Totally.
Yeah, so that's where I was at. I'm like, I have this data, I want to look at it, but I don't even know what I should be asking because I don't know squat.
Yep.
Like, how can I help? And so this was my whole thing of like, how can I help others do it? So what we want to cover today is, you want to make your learning transferable, use Jupyter Notebooks. You want a consistent development environment, use GitHub Codespaces. You want focused learning, use GitHub Copilot. And then I want to talk about one of my favorite things. It's from Microsoft Research. It's an open source project that I hope you'll all get to try out. And it's called Microsoft LIDA. And I want to give you a big shout out to Victor Debia. If you find him, follow him on Twitter. And I'm going to put a link to the project later. It's VICTORDIBIA. He's the person behind this project. And it's super useful to solve my last problem. I'm going to really quickly talk about it. Now, if you want to follow along with me, and we can't go through the whole thing, so I'm going to skip a lot of the stuff. You can tell me when we run out of time, though.
Okay.
But if you want to try this out, that's where the repo is. Feel free to go in there. And Dawn's going to make sure I put a profile in before the end of this.
Yes.
I also 100% blame Dawn because I had to update my slides 2 minutes before the conference with one more extension, which is not completely tried out.
You have the latest and greatest.
I have the latest and greatest. And no, this one was good. I just want to do more with it soon. So we'll talk about that.
Cool.
And once you're done, I'm going to dive straight in and tell you the first thing. So what do you want to do? If you're following along with us, shall we let them follow along with us?
Yes.
All right. So you're going to just fork this repo and launch Codespaces. And on the left side, I actually have this running. Oh, I have this on the wrong one, but I can flip it over. So it should be something like this. Now, obviously, I'm not going to fork my own repo, but I do have a Codespace running. For the heck of it, I'll start another one because we'll see how long it takes for us to get it started. And it shouldn't take you too long at all if you forked it. You start. Now you're like, what is Codespaces? Hopefully some of you know it. If not, that's still okay. But look, I already have VS Code I have an editor in the browser. Oh my God. And if you stick around long enough, you'll see. Remember I said how it takes a long time for me to set stuff up? Well, this was the first problem solved. I launched Codespaces. I see a Visual Studio Code. Didn't take too long. This is coming from GitHub's Codespaces Jupyter template. So it has a default notebook. Let me see. Oh, it's still installing some of the requirements. We're going to wait a little bit of time and come back. But I actually have the version of it that I was running before, which is over here. That's already ready.
Yep.
This is the default notebook that comes with it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wait, look at this. It's already connected to a Python kernel. Oh, wait, I can. So what? I actually got a notebook in my browser with the environment, and I didn't even have to know how it was set up. So this means I can tell my kids, stop giving me excuses and do your work, right? It's like there. And the nice thing about this for me is that Codespaces, there's a pretty good free quota, and it does, you can't even like run out of it. So this was great for me because it solved my first problem. Like if I'm not a Python developer, I don't have to worry. Just give me the environment and I've got it running, right? The second thing I really liked about this, and you might be asking yourself, but what if I'm not connected to the network? What do I do? We're going to talk about what works under the covers. Have you done a talk on dev containers before?
Yes, I have.
Okay, good. Awesome. So you should go check that out. We'll put a little picture that shows you how it works. But behind the scenes, I can run the same thing. Ooh, it's going a bit slowly. Okay. This is Docker on my desktop. So I'm actually able to take the same code, go to Docker on my desktop, and if I open it up here, you'll see that this one underneath here says dev container. So this is the same thing running in my local desktop, same code with a Docker container running here, not connected to the cloud. So I can do the same thing in both places, right? So that's pretty cool. So this is when I started hassling my kid, right? I'm like, okay, we've got the notebook running, so now let's get to work, right?
And if I can for a moment pause, what are the benefits of using a notebook, right? What is a notebook under like at its like core?
Okay, so it actually solves the number one problem for me, which is I want to be able to share what I'm learning with other people.
Okay.
I want to be able to reproduce it so that if I kind of go back, I'll give you an example, right? So we'll look through one of these. Mm-hmm. I want to take a problem and start solving it step by step.
Step by step.
Right? Yep. And I want to be able to say, at this point, something didn't work, so I changed something, but I want to keep that history so I can go back and look at it.
Yep.
And the shareability super helps because like many times, like I said, I'm not a data scientist, but I know many people who are. Mm-hmm. And I want to say, I got stuck and can you help me? And I can literally share this with them and say, these are the things I tried. So please don't like boil the ocean again.
Yep.
And they can come back and tell me. So that was that. Not only that, let's also be a bit selfish. Pretty much everything I go to in Python, they'll give me a notebook for that.
Yep.
So long story short for me, it's reproducibility.
Yes.
It's the ability to document code and content in the same place. So it's in one place. I'm not looking in different things.
Yes.
For someone who's learning or teaching, it's perfect. But is there something else I should be thinking of? You're the expert.
I love notebooks. I love Jupyter Notebooks. And if you see the .ipymb extension, you're in the right place. You're going to have that step-by-step feature to be able to end the shareability, which is also a through line in this entire presentation.
Yes.
So thank you for that aside. I just wanted to give the audience a little bit of a rundown to keep going, but we got some more going.
That is actually the number one tool for us in Jupyter Notebooks if you're learning.
Yeah.
But I'm going to give you this quick spiel of what Codespaces is, and it actually ties into what you were saying, because Codespaces is just running stuff in a container, and it's because we have this dev container file. But to connect to what Don was just saying, if you look at this picture comes from the GitHub Codespaces documentation. You'll see it's a container in green that has whatever we've set up as the environment in a single file. So I didn't even have to know. I just take that image and I run it. But it's running in a virtual environment, that's the blue part, in the Azure cloud. So I can connect to it from anywhere. But look at the left side, and this is why I like GitHub Codespaces, is you can connect to it from different editors. So you can use VS Code on your desktop, you can use VS Code in the browser. You can also use Jupyter Lab if that's what you prefer. And if you kind of look at that little box in the bottom, you can go into Codespaces settings, and it lets you pick your default. So if you're a person who all you want to use this for is Jupyter Notebooks and Codespaces, go for it. Set Jupyter Lab if you want. But I'm going to tell you to stick to VS Code because of the extensions. We're going to see that in a second. But if you've already seen this before, I'm not going to go into this. Under the code, this is the dev container. So I have just 2 points to make. If you see the dev container, you can see in this, I can actually run it anywhere. So here I'm running it in VS Code in a Docker desktop. Same container, connected from my local VS Code, and it works. But the example I put in there is on the left. That's the dev container.json file. And if there's one thing you want to, if you want to make yourself go talk to someone about Codespaces, just say, oh, it's configuration as code. That's what it is.
Yes.
That's the important part.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Configuration as code. I love it.
Because of 2 things. And this is actually super helpful to me, especially when I'm at a place like PyData, because it's showing so many demos.
Yes.
And if you're like, give me that text file that I can check into GitHub. And every time I change it, I add something else, I add a new extension. We're going to see that later today.
Yep.
That configuration code file just changed. That's all I had to do. And the next person who gets it, they're going to get the new configuration. So we're all on the same page, even as the project evolves. But then the next thing I like about it is I can run it locally, and you saw that.
Mhm.
But this picture is what really helps me, right?
Yes.
Because someone actually came up to me at the conference too and said, "But hey, you know what? The problem with all this AI stuff is you all keep doing this in your little environments. It's never going to work in production because that's different." And I'm like, no, not if you use containers. Because the thing with this is, if you look at it, there's an inner loop, outer loop in the production thing. That runtime in the container, if you use the same runtime that you're going to use in your production,
Yes.
while you're doing development, the only difference is the development thing has all the extra libraries for debugging. It has your IDEs, it has your tools, but the rest of it stays on. So if I were to actually build my stuff in this environment, there's a good chance it's going to work in production the way it's supposed to, right?
And then otherwise, you can like isolate what other variables they are. You can track it and make it reproducible.
Yes, that is the word. Those are two favorite words: reproducible and extensible, and shareable too.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so this is my first thing. We got this far, but now I'm like, why did I say don't use Jupyter Lab, use VS Code? Is because GitHub Copilot saves the day for people like me who actually are coming into this with a goal, but not necessarily the breadth of knowledge of someone who's been working in this for 10 years. And also it solves that second problem. Remember I told you, like, I go to Google and I'll be like lost. With this, I stay in my editor and I can ask the questions I want to ask, and I get answers in context.
Yes.
So I'm sure you're all familiar with it, but if you ever want to try it, the nicest thing for me is when we're in that environment, I can just go add it to devcontainer.json right from that. So if you've ever seen it, I think we've done this before, but you can actually go into any extension that you've got installed and basically go in there and say, can you just, this one is, see, it says add to devcontainer.
Yes. Yep.
And now I've like literally committed it into that file. Now everyone else gets an extension if they ever choose to come and look at my stuff, which is super cool. So we're going to try this out, or at least I'm going to walk you through how I convinced my kid that I was smarter than I was. Because let me tell you something. So this is Copilot. Copilot, if you're not familiar with it, have you done Copilot on this? I'm sure you must have.
I've done some Copilot. But I'm not the expert. Please tell me.
Oh, we can just go haywire on this thing. But the thing that you need to know about Copilot is completely in this whole realm of generative AI, right? But it's like, it really is a generative AI model that started with the OpenAI model, but it's something that's been tuned by Microsoft and GitHub, right? So that they're kind of doing this to optimize for code generation. And you can do a ton of stuff, right? You can go and ask for explanations. You can ask for assistance. These are all the regular use cases, right? Now, you want to use Copilot to do things the right way. Don't try to replace yourself with it. That's not what we're trying here. Here we're like, you want to learn, and it can help you by getting rid of the things that would have sucked up your time otherwise, right?
Yes. Okay.
So let me tell you how I made myself look smarter. So remember I was telling you my kid wants to do this competitive programming?
Yes.
Did I tell you these competitive? It's like lead code for high schoolers.
Yes, and I remember being like, oh my.
Yeah, and those problems. I have to show you one of them. Tell me if you run out of time, but I got to show you one of them, okay? If you're interested in the stuff, go to usaco.code or guide. That's what they do. And here we're going to look at the smallest one. The lowest level is called bronze, okay? And so we're not looking at that. We're going to look for easy problems because we want life to be easy. We're going to take bronze. And we're going to say, give me the things that are solved, so I can at least see things that are solved. And here are the problems, okay? So I'm actually going to go, because I think I was doing the rectangle one. So let me show you this. This is the problem that he brought me, right? And said, can you show me how it's solved?
I'm going to zoom in a bit.
Yeah. Can you see that?
Yeah, I can see. Okay.
Okay. Dude,
yeah.
There is a cow that's seeing billboards, and a truck comes by, and they're like, this truck is this much, and that billboard is this much. And can you tell me whether it's occluding and by how much? And they're supposed to write the solution for it, and it should run within a certain amount of time. But the real challenge is you're giving this word problem, they have to convert it, and it's super kind of complicated for them the first time. Why wouldn't it be?
Oh gosh, now I have this like brain project that I want to dig into. I'll let your son know if I figure it out, and we can wrap on it.
Yeah. So, but what I did is I was like, oh, okay, good. This is a good use case for a notebook, right? Yeah. Because then we can work through it and we can kind of figure it out. Yep. So I said, okay. And this is when Copilot chat really came through for me. So, and this is also where you got me in trouble. Okay. You did, because this used to be create notebook, this command, and the night before it became new notebook. But it worked. It all worked. So what you can do is you can go in, and we'll try it right now. I literally went in, and I hope you can read the text. It says, create me a blank Jupyter notebook with a markdown cell containing the title rectangle geometry is what I said. But we'll try to do something different because I have this in my local environment, so I can actually, can you see this okay?
think so, but also sound off in the chat if you need anything.
Yeah. So let's kind of close all the stuff that I currently have open. We'll start Copilot. And this was my moment of Zen, right? I'm like, I'm just going to do a slash. It says, what do you want? And I'm like, I'd like a new notebook. But I'm going to go a bit further and say, can you actually teach me rectangle geometry? So I'm going to be like, new notebook, teach me I'm writing in caps, so okay. Teach me rectangle geometry.
You really want to know.
Let's see what it does. There are things that are still to be. So one of the other things we want to say is no AI is perfect. So, pay attention, trust, but validate. Right?
Yes.
So, but look at this. This is super beautiful for me because when I did this, it's giving me an outline.
Uh-huh.
And then it just gives me a button and says, do you want me to create this? I'm like, yeah, please do. Create it for me. And it goes ahead and actually teaches me the stuff, right?
Wow.
Now, there are some issues. So you can see like over here, it started putting these marks, which is really, which should be, okay, it's in Python. So we have to fix it, but I'm going to wait. And if I wait long enough, it'll start generating sections that teach me various things. Okay. Which is great. So it's like, okay, it's teaching me how to calculate area of a rectangle. Now you might say, why is it? But rectangle geometry is about this. It's like part of that thing is like, you've got a billboard. How do you calculate the area? I'm teaching them, right?
Yes.
So I'm going to let it continue and do this. But I can actually then go ahead and run this, right? Like I'm in the notebook. So I can go and save this.
Yeah.
I'm going to say, pick this kernel.
Yeah.
And if I wait long enough, okay, go. It's imported it. Let's see if this code works. No new code needs to be added. Great. This one, it says, okay, there's a rectangle. Now it says rectangle is not defined. Why was rectangle not?
Comments too. Like,
What did I do? That's because the definition was here and I didn't actually execute that cell.
Okay.
Bad me. So I'm now defining that rectangle. Okay, now it's defined. There's no new code here. No new code here. But
so what you're doing is you're going through each cell and pressing that play button on that side.
Yes.
Yes.
But the thing for me is this, right? It's not about pressing it. It's like now I can actually, and I'm not going to do it live, but when I work with my kid, I'm like, okay, let's read this and change it and see what it does. But I wanted to just tell you, for someone like me, it gave me a starting point. And the most important thing, I didn't go to Google. And I didn't lose my train of thought. We'll come back to see more on this later, but I wanted to kind of give you a sense of what that did, right? But now I'm going to just tell you the rest of the story and you can come back and see all the stuff we had played with. So that was a block billboard problem. So I said, okay, let's add this. Then I copied the problem from that page into this. So now if you look at the notebooks in that repository that I actually shared with you, forget the one we just generated right now. Over here, you'll see the one which says new notebook example. And that's literally what I'm kind of walking through. So you can go look at that. I copied it over from that text file. I literally just copied that over. And you can see it's a really long thing. There's an input format, output format. So I told my kid, okay, we're going to walk through this and learn, right? Now, here's the thing. They give you a solution. So if you look at this, they give you a solution, right?
Okay.
And that's for not everything, but for some of them. It'll say you can actually go view the solution. And this solution has been written by these expert kids who've literally won this championship. So they're like, there's a slow solution. There's a fast solution.
Okay.
Now this kid is a kid who knows Python, but he has no clue about time complexity and any of that. These are the things they judge you on.
Yep.
So I want him to go and start learning on his own. He has no resources, but he needs to figure it out. So this is my tool of like, okay, this is what you're going to do. You're going to ask Copilot, what does time complexity mean? They're talking about it, ask. And Copilot says, oh, here is time complexity, and this is what it means.
It's teaching him.
It's teaching him.
Real time. That's amazing.
Yes, right? And so he doesn't stop. He's like, oh, I'll just ask, and I'll read it. And if I didn't, and this is the beautiful thing about it, when it starts this, right, I can keep doing other things. So like I have a solution. So he can say, can you go explain this code to me? Because there is a fast solution, slow solution. I just want to understand it. So it turned out that the slow solution has an order of complexity worse than the fast one, obviously. But he starts with the slow one and says, can you explain this code to me? And it does explain it. But then it says at the bottom, would you like to know what the purpose of this particular variable is? And he can click on it. And now it expands on that. So now like think about it. This is what I really love, because when you want to learn, you want to cultivate curiosity.
Yes.
And this is giving them chance to say, do you want to learn something more? Do you want to learn something more? And like they can, right?
Yes.
And then, of course, there was that slow and fast solution. This is a contest. So there was a thing that says, hey, there is a fast one. What does that mean? Oh, that means there's a way to improve this.
Yes.
Let's ask Copilot, can I improve this existing solution? And lo and behold, it says yes. And he didn't have to say what was it. It came up with the fact that solution they gave you is not fast. The time complexity is not good. And you asked me about time complexity, so I'm guessing that's why you're asking.
Yes.
And it says, this is a better solution, and it gives them one. So we copied it over, but then we went back and looked at the solution that the kids had done.
Yeah.
And we're like, the fast one there doesn't look exactly the same because it looks like they're using a class.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so then he's like, okay, what is a class? I'm like, so object-oriented programming. You have all year, let's talk about it. But he's like, okay, fine. Can I at least get this to help me change it into class? And he could go there and say, can you simplify it using a class? And lo and behold, it did it. Right?
Yeah, okay.
So my point is not that we wanted to replace it. Oh, but I shouldn't spoil the kicker. So the point is not I want to replace it. I want him to start being curious and asking questions and following through. But remember, we're chasing a goal and moving towards it.
Yeah.
But this is when he really got sold on it, because all of this stuff exists. He could have done it on his own.
Yep.
But here's what I did. I said, do you want to get an intuition for this problem?
Okay.
We went to Copilot and said, it's a rectangle problem. Can you just visualize it for me?
Okay.
Yeah. So it just went and got Matplotlib and plotted it for me and said, there are the billboards and that's the truck.
Wow.
Right?
Very cool.
There are people like me for whom words are really hard. I like visuals.
Me too.
And this helped us get into a completely different conversation, because the minute he saw the picture, he said, oh, is that what they were looking for? There is a different way I know how to do it, because he's good at math, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, this is great. So this is what I'm trying to get at. Like so that was my first example. So we've solved 2 problems already. We were able to get Jupyter Notebook.
Yes.
I didn't have to waste time in my dev environment.
Yep.
I'm able to give the person I'm working with a way to do focused learning without leaving this, because God knows if he goes to Google, he ain't coming back.
Yep.
So we've got this, right? So now I only have a couple of things, but now I have to come back to my own job. I'm like, okay, I came here to do data visualization. So how do I do that? Can I do the same thing for me? So if you want to follow along, you can go ahead and try it. Like in my code, I actually have a couple of data sets that you'll see. If you go into the Codespaces, or you can get it yourself, you'll see under data Kaggle, there's 2 CSV files.
Mm-hmm.
Totally encourage you to bring your own.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm doing this primarily for 2 reasons. On the left is the IPL. Y'all can go and get the European Premier League if you like soccer, but I'm Indian and that's the cricket team. So IPL is the Indian Premier League cricket scores. But for those of you who are not into cricket, there is a TED Talk, so you can go try that instead. But the idea is that I wanted to kind of find a way to learn how to do data visualization.
Yeah.
And I'm like, can I get these tools? So go grab a data set, right? So I'm like, okay, I don't know what Python libraries to use. I don't know what the mechanisms are. How do I get started? I'm like coming to this like a god. Like, I have a data set. Can you give me insights?
Please help. Yes, absolutely.
So first question is, can I have Copilot teach me how I should be doing visualization?
Yes.
The only thing is I did some Googling. I did Googling. And I knew that there are a couple of libraries. There's Matplotlib, there's Seaborn, there's other things too.
Yep.
I'm like, I need to pick one. And I already saw that they had an example of Matplotlib. So I'm like, maybe you can teach me Seaborn. So I basically said, can you create a notebook that teaches me how to use Seaborn to visualize this data set?
Yeah.
And lo and behold, it created that notebook. And that's the one you see.
Yep. Okay.
But now I can go in there and actually start understanding.
Yes.
Because it's now practical, right? I'm like, okay, load this data set, show this. I'm like, oh, okay, there is a data frame. Now I can ask questions about that. And then it gives me this, right? So can it teach me to visualize it? It did.
I'm trying to think of the first time I've approached something like this and how did I do it? And sometimes I Google the thing, but sometimes I just really ask my friends, and you are really beholden to their knowledge level and then just circumstance and availability. And to have that in the same context, this is one of the coolest presentations that I've seen of just like adding all of the tools together into a story. Anyway, this is great. This is really, really great. You're selling
but to your point, you know who I'm going to come tap on the shoulder, be like, I got stuck, Don. Can you go look at my code space and fix this?
But then you can share it with me. You'll give me like a link that I can jump to.
That was exactly my point. So the thing that we were able to do then is like, I'm like, okay, I can visualize it. What can I do next? Can I have fixed mistakes I made? Because guess what? I was shocked at this. It understood that cricket was a game that had runs. Okay. So it was actually making up the notebook without having seen the data set. It was like, okay, I understand that you asked me to do something cricket. Here's the thing. I can check if the runs column exists. And if it does, then I should do this, right? Like I can tell you. But there was no runs column.
Okay.
But it said, if you want to do it. So it wrote this. And when I ran it, of course, I get this runs column doesn't exist.
Okay.
That's because in the data set, it's called high scores.
Okay.
Now, it may not have known that. So I basically went and said, can you fix this to use high scores for runs? Fixed visualization.
Wow.
So I'm like,
okay.
like we're still in the same process where I had a goal.
Yes,
And I keep
absolutely.
inching towards it.
Yep.
And I'm just like, give me help. I learned something. I can fix this. Now I'm like not trying to boil the ocean.
Absolutely.
Then I'm like, okay, can I have it visualize something specific for me? I have a specific question. Can you distribution of high scores by venue? Because guess what? There are many cities in India that have stadiums, but my hometown has better be the best one. Okay. Big surprise it wasn't. But now I can ask it to visualize it. Now, here's the thing. I wouldn't even have known what kind of visualization to use. I wouldn't have known the library, but it did it for me. And as far as I'm concerned, my goal is I want to understand the data, and it let me do that, right?
Yep.
But then we got this far. There's a lot more examples of the data, and you can go check it out. Feel free to like ask Copilot, do whatever, or use your own intuition. One of the things I was kind of figuring out is I can actually get to the point, and this is I don't want to go back to the slides, but if you go look at my deck, you'll see this. There is actually a link to exploratory data analysis that people do in Kaggle on that data set.
Yep.
You can go to it and be like, I like this chart. How do I build that with Seaborn and bring that back and try to learn it, which is super cool, right?
Interesting. Okay, right? Cool.
Right. But now we get to the last part. The last part is, what about the things I didn't know? There are a lot of things I don't know that I didn't know.
Yes.
Like, what do I do? And so this is the part where I want to talk about LIDA. And this is where I was like, how do I even get started building my intuition? Now, this is the hardest thing. We don't have enough time. I need a way for things to tell me these exist, and then I can go learn about them. And this is when I realized that Microsoft had an open source package, and I was talking to the principal and staff researcher who was building this. And I'm like, that looks cool. Can I use it? And he's like, yeah, let's go try it. So we actually set up an org because we want to get the community to start playing with it. So please go check it out. I want to convince you by showing you what it does, okay? So what is LIDA? LIDA is, and shout out to Victor Dibia. I hope I do him justice. Anything I say wrong is on me. You should absolutely follow him. He does spectacular work. But what it is he built this open source library, which basically generates data visualizations for you using OpenAI, but not just OpenAI. It's agnostic to grammar. It'll work with any programming language. But for Python, it's using all these libraries. So you can actually pick the library you want under the covers.
Yeah.
But it also works with multiple large language models. You can use OpenAI. You can use Cohere, you can actually set up with Hugging Face. I've set it up with OpenAI. And most important, my first contribution is I got it to run. I made a template so it'll run on Codespaces. Okay. So we've got a template, so you can literally have this running. And in fact, the example that you'll look at in the workshop has LIDA running in Codespaces.
I love it. True academic. You also have the research paper link.
Yes. You got to read the research paper. But the bottom line is what he was doing is he's using a large language model, and the idea is you can see his example is cars.csv, right? But he's basically bringing a data set, like you bring a data set and say, LIDA, help me. And it can do all of these. So summarization is really about it building a representative model of that data, right? So it's like saying, okay, I need to understand the shape of this data, and I'm going to get that done. And we'll see these examples. But once it's there, the next three things, and I'm only going to talk about two of them because the third one I couldn't actually execute because Codespaces didn't have GPU, or I didn't have access to GPU unless you know someone. But that thing will go, we'll go beyond. But we'll talk about the first two. Goal Explorer is saying, hey, I have this data set and I don't even know what I should be looking at. What are my goals? What are the ways I could explore this? And it helps you by telling you. It suggests things to you.
Okay.
And then the visualization generator says, okay, now if you give me a particular goal, I can give you multiple ways to visualize it. So it's like, it's almost like this tree. I count the data. Here are 10 things you could find out. Do you want to pick one? Oh, I want to pick that. Here are 10 ways you could visualize it. Do you want to pick one? I want to pick that. Oh, here's the visualization, which is super cool, right?
Yes, very cool.
So let's see it in action. So the first thing that I want to do before I jump into it is now tell you why Codespaces really helped me here, right? Because you know this, I'm guessing you also use this a lot, right? Like Codespaces has secrets where you can put your environment keys.
Yep.
So all of you who use notebooks, please, whatever you do, don't put your OpenAI key in the notebook in clear text because, and this I found out the hard way, not that I actually committed it, but what happens when you put it in the notebook and you forget to clear the outputs, it could check it in, which means that data will be now in clear text in your repo. So we really never want to do that. And so I was like, okay, I need to be able to use this. How do I do it? And it turns out that Codespaces has a secret. And I'm so confident about this that I will actually show you the fact because there's no way you'll ever be able to see it. And that's the beauty of it. So if I actually go into Codespaces settings, I think it's settings Codespaces, you will see that I actually have Codespaces secrets for various things. And if I go in for the OpenAI key, you'll never see it once I've said it. It'll never show it to you. But I can associate it with as many projects as I want to do. And now what happens is every time I load up that project in Codespaces, it automatically takes that environment variable and dumps it.
Yep.
And so I never have to share it, right? But the other thing is, what if I'm using Docker? It doesn't have access to it. Then I can do this thing of making this environment.env, Git ignoring it and putting it in there. But always do one of those two things. Never put it in your notebook.
Absolutely. And we were talking about how this makes it easy to reproduce and share the same code with other people. And they have that ability to save that environment variable, and how the common practice of a .env template, for example, so they know which environment variables they're going to need. You can commit that, but not the actual variables.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, never. But you bring up an excellent point, because that's right. Like, so if this person that I'd gone on a attended tutorial, if they had done this, they could have shared it. But I would have actually applied my OpenAI key. It's not using theirs.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a great point. So one of the things, a little dialogue that you see is, if you do this, GitHub will actually notice, if you're in Codespaces, that you added a secret and attached it to the new repo, and it will rebuild your environment so that it's injecting it into the environment.
Cool.
So it's actually pretty seamless. But now I can do things with LIDA. Okay, so what do I want to do? The first thing is, on the left side, you can see GitHub is really nice. If you have a CSV file and you go and open it in GitHub, it'll actually give you a tabular form. But I can go into LIDA and say, look, all I did is I said, I have a CSV file. LIDA, please use the OpenAI model.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm giving you a default. Use this model from OpenAI. Okay. Here's a temperature. And that's it, right? And give me the base model. Give me a summary. That's it. And so it's summarized. So I say, go ahead and summarize this.
Yeah.
And it summarizes this. Now, it's not expanded. If you kind of look at the code, you'll be able to expand it, but it's able to tell you, yours has this many fields, these are the types, these are the names. So it's given kind of like the shape of the data is rating there, right? Now I can do stuff with it. So now I'm like, go generate goals for me.
Yeah.
So over here, I'm like, hey, LIDA.goals, give me 10 goals. And for now, it's an exploratory data analysis. I haven't told it anything else. I'm just saying, go give me 10 goals. And what it does, and this part, like I just told Codespaces, Copilot, can you help me visualize this in a table? That's all this is, right?
Yep.
But basically what it does is it generates this. So now it's telling me, here are 10 questions you can ask of the data.
Yeah.
And here is the visualization you should use to visualize the answer.
Interesting.
And the rationale says, and this is why this visualization is good for that question. And to me, it blew my mind. I'm like, okay, I didn't even know I could ask these questions. When I wanted to ask it, I wouldn't have known where to start, but it's telling me, right? So to me, it was super helpful.
Yeah.
But now I can go ahead, I can add a persona. So for those of you who follow cricket, there are teams based in cities, just like in the US. Mumbai is Bombay, Mumbai. Mm-hmm. They have like they are the Yankees of the Indian cricket world.
Okay.
So we all kind of hate them. You can tell I'm not from Mumbai. But anyway, let's say I am a Mumbai fan. I can actually put a persona in here and say, can you generate goals for me? But my persona is, I'm a person who's a fan of that team. So I want to look at this data from the perspective of that fan. And it tells me goals that are now suddenly changed there. What's the performance of that team? What's like compared to other teams? How did they do? Are they doing better in this stadium? Are they doing better in that stadium?
Yeah.
Now think about it for another data set. Like there is a TED Talks data set, right? What if I went there and said, from the persona of someone who's a social worker looking to understand social causes. Now, suddenly it's shifting the TED Talks and saying, here are talks that talk about this and talk about that, right?
Yeah.
So super useful because I didn't have to do anything. I just had to say that. But now let's say I've got those goals, right? I can then go to use the LIDA.visualize step and say, please visualize that for me. Like you've given me these 10 goals. Told me how I can visualize it. Why don't you also do that extra step for me?
This is the exciting part for me. I'm hype about this.
So I just say here, go ahead and visualize it for me.
Yeah.
And it does this, right? It's picking a visualization for me.
Yes.
It just picked one. But I can actually say, I want you to use a different library. Mm-hmm. I want you to use a different temperature, give a little bit more flexibility and go have fun with it, right? So I can actually say, do whatever you want, but I can also tell it, I want to customize it. And I want to make this point here because I make it later anyway. Mm-hmm. This to me is a big difference. We also did this with Copilot, if you remember. We went and said, here's my data, please visualize it. And it did it.
Yep.
So what's the difference? Why would I use this versus that? Mm-hmm. What I liked about this is open source, first of all.
Yep. Okay.
Copilot to me is helpful, but I can't change its behavior. So in other words, if I wanted to use a different model, I can tell it, but I would have to know what it used. I can't like program it in any way, right?
Okay, interesting.
It's giving me the best effort of what it has.
And it pulls back the knobs and it lets you like turn the knobs and change some things up. I love that.
Right?
Revealing back the layers because we are programmers at heart. We want to know how it's working too.
Yes. And if it's open source, I can actually look under the hood, figure out how he did it, and maybe even build something myself or something different.
Cool. Okay.
You know what I mean? So Yeah, so why not? Like, so that was the thing. It's like, okay, now it helped me build this visualization.
Okay.
But we can go more. I can actually do the user query, right? I can
Yes.
not only say just you got a goal and a visualization you were doing for me, but actually have a new goal for you that you didn't give me, but I want to know. So I give it that as the query.
Right.
And it goes ahead and does this. And like I was just mentioning about Copilot, I can go here. I like color. Like, this is so
Yes.
boring. So I'm like, man, can you, like, so flexibility, trial and error. I'm like, I want this, but I want it to be colorful and I want this to be vertical and I want, right? And so you can see Mumbai. Oh yeah, Mumbai was not doing so well. My hometown is Bangalore, so we're there. All right. So the good thing that you're seeing over here is that, like, you know, with every step I was learning more. I'm able to tune stuff. I'm able to play with it. I'm able to understand it. And I'm just using tooling to keep closer and closer to my goal.
Yes.
So this one is saying the explanation. So all this time it's been doing stuff for me, but like, suppose it built a visualization for me. It also has this ability to explain to me why it made those choices that it made.
Yes.
But this actually showing, so here it's saying, here's a section on accessibility, transformation, and visualization. It's saying, maybe I chose colors because of color contrast for accessibility. Why did I pick this?
Interesting.
And then transformation, maybe I have to change your data in some way to adjust for this visualization. It's going to explain that part. And then the visualizations are, why did I do what I did, right?
Okay.
But what I actually wanted to show this for is I went digging under the covers because I was like curious, like, what does accessibility mean? I really didn't know.
Yeah.
And it turned out that if you go into the code, and this is why I want to emphasize that LIDA is open source, which is really cool. So I went digging in and I found that under the LIDA source, there's an explainer Python file that I could go in, and it's a system prompt. So it's basically writing a system prompt that's being sent to the OpenAI endpoint.
Yep.
And the system prompt is literally saying, you're a helpful assistant. And you explain the code in 3 dimensions, and accessibility is the physical appearance of the chart, the goal of the chart, and the main insight. So now I'm like, oh, I understand what that meant.
Yes.
You know? So to me, this was like, oh, this was my like light bulb moment of, I could technically go in and write a 4th thing that I wanted, right?
Yeah.
If I wanted to, and I could be like, I want you to like have one more option when they say, explain this to me.
Right.
I might want you to explain this to me from the perspective of the person who created this. That's the greatest person on earth. And please go and, you know what?
Absolutely.
Why not? So anyway, the story goes on. We got this visualization that came out of the box because we just had goals and it said, here are my visualizations, go do it.
Okay.
But now if I want to get for a given goal, I'm like, that visualization you did by default is not the one I want.
Okay.
I can go and say, here, recommend me stuff. And it's for the same goal, it gives me multiple visualizations.
Yeah.
And this is useful for me because I'm like, I'm looking at this data and I want to look at it from different perspectives. It's like those, you know, elephant and multiple people. Am I looking at the trunk? Depending on how I look at it, I get ape and insight.
Absolutely.
But if you show me the visual, and then I'm like, oh, okay, for the purpose that I'm looking for, that is actually better than this, right?
Absolutely.
So the fact that it does this for me was pretty cool. So this is the next part of it. And then last part, so I'm going to stop with LIDA. There's a lot of stuff you should definitely go do.
LIDA sounds so exciting.
You should get Victor on. I'm going to
cool.
send him to you and say, and then he can tell you how it works under the covers.
Okay.
And also talk about AutoGen. I'm just telling you.
All right. AutoGen.
Yes. But where do we go from here? I don't know if we're like running over time. You let me know. But
we're good.
Okay.
We got a little bit left.
Okay. So where do we go from here? And this is where this is Dawn's fault. Everyone remember, this is Dawn's fault. Because the night before, I realized that there is an extension in VS Code.
Yes.
So this again goes to my kind of like mentality of, if I can get tools that will help me learn how to do stuff that I would not have known unless I was a Python expert or a data science expert, that's great for me. This is why Visual Studio Code is cool, because they have this extension called Data Wrangler.
Yes.
And you probably covered it.
Yeah, we had a live stream on Data Wrangler. Make sure you go to the Python Pulse playlist and you'll find a live stream on Data Wrangler. There will be more live streams on Data Wrangler.
I need to see that.
Yes, okay.
You
I think we might have you back and play with some Data Wrangler.
Bring me as the guinea pig, so teach me how to do it, because I want to use that next. So what the big picture I got from Data Wrangler is Data Wrangler will sit in your editor, give it a CSV file, and it lets you do the thing that data scientists do well, which is they clean the data, but it does one thing better, and this is the thing that I love, right? It takes away the complexity of the language by letting you do things through their interface, and it writes the pandas code for you, and it shows it to you in a preview so you can adjust it. But it's yet another step for me where I'm like, oh, I didn't have to feel stressed that I don't know the stuff. It's giving me a helping hand.
And teaches you how to do it and keeps you in control.
And keeps you in the editor.
Yes.
So I did not leave. So over here, this is what Data Wrangler looks like. You see operation panel, summary panel, history, insights, data grid. But of course, like she told me about this the night before. So I didn't get to do much, but I was like, okay, I at least have to try. So I installed it. And again, it was as simple as like, def container, add the extension. And then it said, what you need to do is you need to open a data frame, .head. And if you run it, it said, we'll automatically embed a button called Data Wrangler and press it. So I said, great. So in this data set, and it's actually over here, I think I have to commit it still, but I did that, right? So that exact same file that we were in before, right after the .head, when I ran it after installing the extension and reloading my container, it gave me this button. So I pressed the button.
You pressed the button.
I pressed the button. And look, on this right side, I get this ridiculously rich thing that is giving me all the data. And now I'm like, oh, wait, maybe there wasn't enough data to make some visualization.
Okay.
It's giving me the distributions right there. I'm like, oh, maybe I should be looking for something else. And this was so cool. I haven't even played with it yet. Again, blame Dawn, but I will be doing more with it. So the thing, though, is my first step always is, can I instrument my environment so I don't have to worry about it? Now all I have to do, I'm just making myself a richer sandbox to play in. So definitely go check it out. And then I'm going to leave with 2 shout outs, and then I'm going to wrap it up, and then we'll see if we can get that profile committed.
Yes.
But the 2 things is, what you're really beginning to realize these days, especially with all the generative AI hype, is that at the end of the day, whether you're using Copilot, whether you're using OpenAI, whatever you're doing, it's about the prompts, because the prompts are effectively your programming interface to these models. So what you say matters. In fact, in your whole life, what you say matters. But in prompt engineering, it's a big deal. So I just want to give a shout out to our team, like the whole huge team that just released this 2 days ago, and it's been incredible. I think in 48 hours, they've exceeded 2K stars.
That's amazing.
So go check it out, please do, and give us feedback. And here is why I'm telling you this. First of all, I did the prompt engineering fundamentals chapter. I'm super happy with that. But more importantly, there are 12 lessons that will take you from principles to practical prototypes. There are examples of how you build a low-code application. There's an example of how you build a search application, etc. And of course, most of them have exercises with Jupyter Notebooks, and thanks to me, they are instrumented in Codespaces. So if you believe everything I said, go try it out, launch it in Codespaces, walk through them, and more importantly, contribute back. We want to see more examples. We want to see, hey, there was a bug, they should have fixed it. Doesn't matter. We want this to really be, it's a free and open source resource. We really want people to kind of skill up quickly. And then I'll leave you with the last 2 things. So if you found any of this interesting, on the left side is another repo that I own. So which one gave you a QR code? Which one gave you a 404? This one? Just go to ak.ms/genai-beginners. If this QR code was wrong, that's on me. But if not, go there and we'll make sure that the comments have the right one.
Yeah.
But just go to genai-beginners.
Bottom of the screen.
Yes, that's the one. These 2, the left side is actually something I'm working on. So if you found this workshop interesting, that's kind of where I'm going to try a full journey into this.
Nice.
These resources there are what I'm going to start looking at systematically. Did you know there's a Pandas AI?
No.
Someone is building an LLM based generative AI application that tries to go one step above Pandas and actually write the Pandas code file.
Cool.
Yeah, I know.
That makes sense.
Well, okay. I'm like, it's there.
I didn't know it existed.
Yeah, if it's there, you got to use it. So anyway, there's a whole bunch of things in there that I'm like, oh, these are good resources. I should check them out. Okay. So if you're interested in it, I'm going to do at some point, a 30 days, I want to just go look through this. So go check that out. But mostly, if I have to give one thing, it's a shout out to LIDA. The LIDA project is an organization which has 2 things right now that are pinned in there. One is a Streamlit app that Victor wrote. The other one is the Codespaces template that I put in there. And it also has a link to the actual LIDA open source project.
Yes.
Do give LIDA a star. We really, really want to see Victor get more time to do the stuff that we want to. No, I'm kidding. Cool. He's an amazing guy. So that's all I had for you. And I just wanted to say, we're going to stop by saying, I hope we did our job. And then we're going to commit this profile. Yeah. But we started off saying, we want a transferable learning Jupyter Notebooks for you. Yeah. Okay. We want a consistent development environment, Codespaces, didn't have to do squat.
Absolutely.
Wanted focused learning, Copilot. I didn't ever leave my editor.
Absolutely.
And how do I build intuition? It's not just LIDA. There's tons of other projects coming up, but this was a great open source way for you to start thinking about how you could bring your own knowledge.
Absolutely.
And so if you start learning prompt engineering and all, you could actually go fork that, contribute back and say, hey, it would be cool to have this other thing. but it really is, it's building intuition for me. And now Dawn's giving me this, you said.
Yeah, okay.
All right,
I'm
Dawn.
also just so thankful. I love this journey. I love the story you do. It's so great. I've taken this was absolutely in like half the time you've just like kicked butt on the talk that I did with dev containers. I need a better story. I'm inspired. We're gonna be partnering on some more dev containers and other chats.
You
too.
teach me all the Python stuff
Okay.
I need to do, and I'll do all the app stuff.
We're gonna be a
That's good.
great team. I love
Awesome.
it.
Okay. So remember, because of her, Data Wrangler sitting in here, and I never actually committed it. But now we'll see two things. First is how to create a profile. I'm just going to go in here.
Okay.
Oh, actually, am I in the right place? Yep, over there, profiles.
Yep, in the bottom. And you want to zoom in a little bit? I don't know if that actually even zooms.
Can you see it?
Yeah.
Let's see if it does.
And we could do this real quick. We only have a few minutes left, but we can do it real fast.
I actually have a profile right here that I've created.
Yeah, okay.
So I'm just going to export it. And you can actually go create your own. So I'm going to just export it.
Okay.
And when I export it, it's going to give me a file. And I'm saying, yeah, go ahead and export all of that. And it says make it a local file. So I'll check it in. That'll make her happy. The things I do for Dawn. So I'm just going to call it VS Code profile. Say, OK, was exported successfully. And if I'm right, somewhere I have my GitHub thing over here. Changes. And there's my profile. There it is.
You
Are
go.
you happy now?
Yes.
Dawn made me do this. On the Python pulse, because we'll always know this forever. So we'll go commit it, and I have to pull stuff. Hopefully there wasn't a conflict. Oh, there wasn't. Does not sit. Oh no, what did I do? Okay, I need to commit it. What happened to my repository? No, I'll go check. It's there.
It's absolutely there.
I think I moved it to a different thing, and I will still have my
sense.
old one. All right.
Demos are so fun. And then I like made you do this last thing of like,
you know what?
Live on screen.
No. But yeah, we're running out of time, but I'll do it through the Codespaces one, which is actually, I did this through the one that was on my local Docker.
I love doing that. I will review and commit and review PRs and commit via Codespaces all the time.
Yeah, so I should just restart this thing. Did I have one running? Damn it. I got through the whole thing without a problem. You again. Okay, we'll commit it through the Codespace because the other one was my local dev container. And that was not what I should have done. But let's try committing.
I just wanted to add a little flavor at the end. Just add a little spice.
I swear to God. So close. So close. But okay, now I got to wait till it's done. But for now, we'll create one. So we'll call it Dawn's
Okay.
I think this is what's going to condemn it. Finally, is what's going to happen. So we're going to create this, and I'm just going to copy it from the default, whatever's there, and then we can add later to it.
Yep.
That's been created right now, but then we need to export it out, right? That's what I need to do. So I'm going to export it out, and then we'll do that here. We'll do that again.
My profile, I did.
We'll do local file. I'm going to keep it this way. And then hopefully, update profile. Come on, man. Do we have time?
Yeah.
We do. My typing skills are so terrible. Yeah, stage them committed. Sync changes. Yeah, do that. What? No. Okay, you're just condemning me here.
I know, because I've done that exact same routine like a million times. I don't know why it's not doing it right now.
I know, so I got to find my repo and do this. So I'm so sorry.
We're under the gun, and that's the reason why.
Yes. All right, we'll fix this offline and send it to you. Yes.
This was so much fun. Okay, we have seconds left. If you'll give me just a moment extra of your time, I'll read the goodbye. All right. Let's go. All right. It has been so much fun to have this time with you today. We are calling in live from PyData NYC. If you want to continue to join us, you can visit us on the Python Discord at aka.ms/Python-Discord. You can see us on the socials, Python VS Code on Twitter. It's been a blast. I'll see you next month, second Friday of every month. This one was an unusual and very special one.
Thank you all.
Bye, everybody.